Have you ever brought home a beautiful, healthy plant, lovingly placed it in a brand new pot, and watched it slowly turn brown, wither, and die within a month? You probably blamed yourself. You probably thought you watered it too much, or maybe too little. But what if I told you that the real reason your plants are dying has absolutely nothing to do with your watering habits? What if the silent killer is hiding right there in the bag of dirt you bought at the store? Today, we are uncovering a massive secret straight from a 20-year veteran of an agricultural supply store. We are going to reveal the critical difference between seedling mix and culture potting soil. I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never look at a bag of dirt the same way again, and your plants will finally thrive. The truth is, most people treat all dirt as if it is exactly the same, and that is the deadliest mistake you can make. Let me ask you right now, do you actually know what kind of soil is sitting in your living room pots right now? Tell me in the comments if you usually just grab the cheapest bag at the store, because we are about to change everything you know about gardening. Let us rewind a bit and establish exactly what we are dealing with here. For decades, the agricultural industry has separated soil into very specific categories based on the exact life stage of a plant. Back in the day, people used to just dig up dirt from their backyards, throw it in a pot, and hope for the best. But backyard dirt is full of unknown bugs, diseases, and dense clay that suffocates indoor roots. So scientists and agricultural experts created commercial soil mixes. The two most common types you will encounter are seedling mix, which is designed strictly for sprouting seeds, and culture soil, which is standard potting mix for adult plants. Think of seedling mix as baby formula, and culture soil as a heavy steak dinner. They are scientifically engineered for completely different stages of life. The 20-year agricultural expert we spoke to said that 90% of the dead plants people bring into his shop were murdered by soil confusion. People buy the soft, fluffy baby soil for their massive adult plants, or they buy the heavy, harsh adult soil for their fragile little seeds. Understanding the history and the science behind these two mediums is the ultimate key to unlocking a lush, green, indoor jungle. Let us start by looking right into the bag and examining the visual and physical differences. When you open a fresh bag of seedling mix, you will immediately notice that it is incredibly light and fluffy. It almost feels like a cloud in your hands. There are no large chunks, no heavy sticks, and no dense clumps of mud. It is finely sifted and beautifully uniform. Now imagine opening a bag of standard culture soil or general potting mix. The experience is completely different. This dirt is heavy, rich, and chunky. You will see pieces of tree bark, little white rocks, and maybe even some bits of composted material. It smells earthy and strong, like a forest floor after a rainstorm. This physical difference is not just for show. It is the very foundation of plant survival. The light texture of the seedling mix is designed so that tiny, weak baby roots can easily push through without facing any resistance. On the other hand, the heavy, chunky texture of the culture soil is meant to grab onto thick, strong adult roots and anchor a tall plant so it does not tip over. If you put a heavy adult plant in light seedling mix, it will physically fall over because there is nothing for the roots to grab onto. Now let us dive deep into the fundamental purpose of seedling mix and why it exists in the first place. The primary goal of seedling mix is to create a safe, sterile incubator for a seed to wake up and push out its very first roots. To achieve this, seedling soil is almost entirely stripped of heavy nutrients. This might sound counterintuitive, but it is true. A seed already contains all the food it needs to germinate inside its own shell. It does not need outside food right away. What it desperately needs is a clean environment free from fungus, bacteria, and harsh chemicals. If you were to look at a perfect illustration of this, think about a newborn human baby. You would never feed a newborn baby a spicy taco or a heavy hamburger. Their tiny systems cannot handle it. In the exact same way, a freshly sprouted seed cannot handle heavy fertilizers. If there are strong nutrients in the soil, the baby plant will suffer from chemical burns and die before it even reaches the surface. That is why seedling mix is kept extremely mild and gentle. On the completely opposite end of the spectrum, we have standard culture soil, which is the heavy lifter of the plant world. Once a plant has grown its true leaves and established a strong root system, it becomes extremely hungry. It has exhausted the food supply that was packed inside its original seed. This is where culture soil comes in. This soil is packed with long-term, slow-release nutrients. It contains rich organic matter, decomposed compost, and essential minerals like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. The purpose of this soil is to sustain an adult plant for months or even years. Imagine a teenager going through a massive growth spurt. They need a huge amount of calories and nutrition every single day just to keep growing. An adult monstera or a fruiting tomato plant operates the exact same way. If you do not provide them with the dense, nutrient-rich environment found in culture soil, they will simply stop growing, drop their leaves, and slowly starve to death right in front of your eyes. This brings us to the biggest myth we need to debunk right now, the dangerous idea that all dirt is exactly the same. So many beginners walk into a garden centre, look at the wall of bags, see the word dirt, and just grab the cheapest one on sale. But our 20-year expert warns that this is a fatal trap. Soil companies use very tricky marketing. They put pictures of beautiful blooming flowers on a bag of seedling mix, making you think it will make your adult flowers bloom. This is simply not true. The ingredients inside these bags are radically different. Seedling mix is usually made of pure peat moss, vermiculite, and a little bit of lime to balance the acid. It has zero actual dirt in it. Culture soil, however, actually contains composted forest products, aged manure, and sometimes even sand. Treating them as interchangeable is like putting diesel fuel into a regular gasoline car. Sure, they are both liquids that go into an engine, but one will absolutely destroy the machine. You must read the fine print on the bag. Let us take a closer look at the dark side of seedling mix, which is the nutrient drop-off. As we mentioned, seedling mix is intentionally designed to be low in nutrients. It gives the baby plant a gentle start. However, this gentle start has a strict expiration date. Usually, after about 30 to 45 days, every single drop of nutrition in that seedling mix is completely gone. The plant has eaten it all. If you leave a growing plant in seedling mix past this window, it will hit a brick wall. The leaves will start turning pale yellow. The stems will become weak and stringy. It will look like it is begging for sunlight, but what it is actually begging for is food. A great illustration for this block is trying to run a marathon while only eating a single cracker. You will start off fine, but you will quickly collapse. The 20-year agricultural expert notes that people constantly bring in pale, dying plants, complaining that they water them perfectly. He takes one look at the soft, fluffy soil and immediately knows the plant is starving to death in a barren wasteland. Now, what happens if you make the opposite mistake? What happens if you try to start fragile seeds in heavy, nutrient-dense culture soil? This is an equally tragic story. Culture soil is loaded with powerful fertilizers designed for tough adult roots. When a delicate little seed cracks open and sends out a microscopic, fragile root into this harsh environment, it gets obliterated. The high concentration of salts and fertilizers in the adult soils literally pulls moisture out of the baby root, causing what is known as fertilizer burn. It is basically a chemical burn for plants. The seed shrivels up and turns black. You will water the pot for weeks, staring at empty dirt, wondering why your seeds never sprouted. You might blame the seeds, thinking they were old or defective. But the reality is, the soil was far too aggressive. It is like throwing a person who cannot swim into the deep end of a stormy ocean. The environment is simply too intense for a beginner. This is why separation of these soils is absolutely mandatory for success. Another massive difference that no one talks about is how these two soils handle water. Water retention is the key to life, but too much of it brings death. Seedling mix is engineered to act like a giant thirsty sponge. because seeds need constant, unbroken moisture to soften their shells and sprout. Seedling soil is designed to hold onto water tightly and evenly. It stays damp for a very long time. Culture soil behaves very differently. Adult plants absolutely hate having wet feet. If adult roots sit in soaking wet mud for too long, they cannot breathe, and they begin to rot. Therefore, culture soil is blended with large chunks of bark and lots of perlite to create air pockets. When you water culture soil, the water is supposed to rush through, wet the roots, and then quickly drain out of the bottom of the pot. If you mistakenly plant an adult succulent or a tropical houseplant in pure seedling mix, that sponge-like soil will hold the water against the roots for weeks. The roots will suffocate, turn to mush, and the plant will rot from the inside out. Understanding the concept of air pockets is vital, so let us break it down further. Plant roots actually need to breathe oxygen, just like we do. They absorb oxygen from the tiny empty spaces between the particles of dirt. Because seedling mix is so finely milled and soft, it compacts very easily over time. When it compacts, all those tiny air pockets are crushed and destroyed. For a baby plant that is only going to be in that soil for a few weeks, this is not a huge problem. But if you try to keep an adult plant in seedling mix for 2 years, the soil will eventually turn into a dense, hard brick that suffocates the roots. Culture soil prevents this disaster by including large, irregular chunks of organic material. These chunks bump against each other, refusing to lay flat. This creates permanent underground tunnels and caverns where oxygen can freely circulate, no matter how much you water it or how old the soil gets. This structural integrity is something you simply cannot get from a bag of fluffy seed starter. So how do you navigate the garden centre and avoid falling into the marketing traps? This is a crucial skill you must learn. When you walk down the aisle, ignore the pretty pictures of giant tomatoes and blooming roses on the front of the bags. Those pictures are designed to trick your brain. Instead, you need to flip the bag over and look at the actual ingredient list and the guaranteed analysis. If you see words like finely sifted peat, vermiculite, and a distinct lack of compost or fertilizer numbers, you are holding seedling mix. Even if the bag says premium potting mix on the front, trust the ingredients on the back. If you flip a bag over and see ingredients like aged pine bark, forest humus, earthworm castings, and slow-release fertilizer pellets, you are holding culture soil. The 20-year expert says that the biggest secret to gardening is treating soil bags like food at the grocery store. You would never buy a box of cereal without reading the nutrition label, so you should never buy a bag of soil without reading the structural components. Let us talk about the terrifying transitional phase. This is the moment where many gardeners experience total failure. You successfully started your seeds in the gentle seedling mix. They grew their first leaves and they look beautiful. Now it is time to move them into the adult culture soil. This process is called repotting, and it shocks the plant. Imagine moving from a quiet, soft, comfortable room into a loud, intense, demanding factory. That is what the plant feels when its roots hit the strong fertilizers in the new soil. To manage this, you must never shake all the old seedling mix off the roots. You want to leave a small ball of the gentle soil wrapped around the base of the roots to act as a protective shield. Then, you gently place that ball into the heavier culture soil. This allows the roots to slowly reach out and acclimate to the strong nutrients at their own pace. If you forcefully rip away the baby soil and shove the raw roots into the adult soil, the shock can easily kill the plant in a matter of days. A question our 20-year expert gets all the time is, can you just mix the two together and create a universal super soil? The answer is yes, but only if you know exactly what you are doing. The expert actually has a secret ratio he uses for highly sensitive indoor plants like calatheas or delicate ferns. These plants want the nutrients of adult soil, but they need a softer texture. He recommends blending 70% high-quality culture soil with 30% seedling mix. This specific ratio dilutes the harshness of the heavy fertilizers just enough, while drastically improving the moisture retention for plants that hate drying out. However, you must mix it thoroughly. If you leave clumps of pure seedling mix inside the pot, those spots will stay constantly soggy and invite root rot while the rest of the pot dries out. It is like baking a cake. You cannot just throw flour and eggs in a pan and hope for the best. You have to blend them perfectly to create a unified environment for the roots. We absolutely must discuss pest management, because your choice of soil directly affects the bugs in your house. Have you ever noticed tiny little black flies buzzing around your houseplants? Those are fungus gnats, and they are the absolute worst nightmare of any indoor gardener. Here is the shocking truth. Fungus gnats exclusively lay their eggs in the top layer of constantly moist, highly organic soil. Because seedling mix is designed to hold water like a sponge and stay incredibly damp, it is a 5-star luxury hotel for fungus gnats. If you mistakenly use pure seedling mix for all your indoor adult plants, you're basically building a massive breeding ground for a gnat infestation. Culture soil, with its chunky bark and fast-draining perlite, dries out much faster on the surface. When the top 2 inches of culture soil become bone dry, fungus gnats cannot lay their eggs there, and the life cycle is broken. Choosing the heavy, fast-draining adult soil is your first and most powerful line of defense against an apartment full of annoying flies. Let us explore the economic aspect of this mistake, because using the wrong soil is literally throwing your hard-earned money straight into the garbage. High-quality seedling mix is often much more expensive per ounce than giant bags of culture soil. The process of finely sifting and sterilizing the baby soil takes a lot of effort at the factory. If you buy 5 tiny bags of expensive seedling mix to fill a massive decorative pot for a mature indoor tree, you are wasting a huge amount of money. Not only did you overpay for the volume, but as we learned earlier, that tree will starve to death in a month anyway. Then you will have to go buy a brand new tree and a brand new bag of dirt. The 20-year veteran shop owner sees people trapped in this expensive cycle of failure all the time. By simply buying a massive cheap bag of chunky culture soil for the big pots and reserving the tiny specialized bags of seedling mix strictly for actual seeds, you will save hundreds of dollars a year and stop replacing dead plants. Now let us imagine a scenario to fully cement this knowledge in your mind. Imagine a beautiful, expensive monstera plant that you just bought from a boutique plant shop. You bring it home and you decide it needs a bigger pot. You go to the garage and find a leftover bag of soil. It feels light, soft and powdery. You fill the big pot and water it. For the first 2 weeks, everything seems fine. But beneath the surface, a disaster is unfolding. The massive, thick roots of the monstera are suspended in wet powder. There is no air. The water is not draining. The roots begin to turn brown and slimy. Meanwhile, the plant is searching for nitrogen to keep its massive green leaves shiny, but the powder has no nitrogen. By week 4, the beautiful leaves start turning a sickening shade of yellow. The stems begin to droop. You panic and add more water, which only speeds up the rotting process. This whole tragedy could have been easily avoided if you had just recognized that the powdery dirt was baby soil, entirely unfit for a jungle giant. It is also vital to understand the role of sterilization in these soils. Seedling mix is usually heavily sterilized at the manufacturing plant. They heat it up to extreme temperatures to kill any lingering fungus spores, weed seeds, or dormant insects. This is done because a freshly sprouted seed has zero immune system. It cannot fight off a fungal infection. Culture soil, however, is rarely fully sterilized, and honestly, you do not want it to be. Adult plants rely on a microscopic army of beneficial bacteria and fungi living in the soil to help them digest nutrients. It is called the soil microbiome. If you plant an adult plant in perfectly sterile seedling mix, you are depriving it of its natural immune system helpers. It is like a human taking antibiotics every single day. Eventually, your gut health is destroyed and you become weak. Adult plants need the raw, living, slightly messy environment of culture soil to build strong immune systems and fight off natural diseases. Let us talk about the specific warning signs your plant will give you if it is trapped in the wrong soil. Plants cannot speak, but they communicate loudly through their leaves. If you have an adult plant stuck in seedling mix, the earliest warning sign is stunted growth. New leaves will come out incredibly tiny, or they will not come out at all. The plant is conserving energy because it has no food. Next, you will see a generalized yellowing of the lower, older leaves. The plant is literally cannibalizing its own old leaves to survive. On the flip side, if you have a delicate seed or a tiny cutting stuck in harsh culture soil, the warning signs are sudden and violent. The edges of the tiny leaves will become crispy and brown overnight. This is the fertilizer burning the tissue. Or the stem right at the soil line will turn black and pinch off, causing the tiny plant to just fall over dead. Recognizing these silent screams for help is what separates a beginner from a master gardener. The 20-year expert shared a fascinating trick about recycling old soil, which heavily depends on knowing the difference between the two types. Never, ever reuse old seedling mix to start new seeds. Once a batch of seeds has grown in that tiny pot, they have sucked out all the trace minerals, and more importantly, they might have left behind microscopic fungal spores called damping off disease. If you put fresh seeds in used baby soil, they will almost certainly rot. However, you can take that spent, useless seedling mix and throw it into your large outdoor compost bin, or mix it into a giant tub of adult culture soil. Because adult plants are tough, they do not care if there are a few fungal spores, and they do not need the baby soil to have any food left. Mixing old baby soil into adult pots is a fantastic way to recycle the material, improve water retention slightly, and avoid wasting money. Just remember the golden rule: soil flows upward from babies to adults, never backward. We also need to address the confusion surrounding additives like perlite and vermiculite, because they are key indicators of which soil you are holding. Perlite is the white, crunchy stuff that looks like little pieces of styrofoam. It does not hold water at all. It is literally exploded volcanic glass designed to create air pockets and ensure rapid drainage. You will find massive amounts of perlite in heavy culture soil. Vermiculite, on the other hand, looks like shiny, golden brown flakes. Vermiculite acts like a sponge. It absorbs water and holds it tightly. You will find high concentrations of vermiculite in seedling mix because seeds need that constant, gentle moisture. If you look closely at the dirt in your hand, you can decode its purpose just by identifying the rocks. Lots of crunchy white rocks means adult soil with high drainage. Lots of shiny golden flakes means baby soil with high moisture retention. It is a secret code printed right there in the dirt. Let us bust one final myth before we wrap up the main concepts. Many people think that adding liquid fertilizer to seedling mix magically turns it into adult culture soil. This is a very dangerous assumption. While liquid fertilizer does add food, it does absolutely nothing to fix the structural problem. If you pour heavy liquid fertilizer into the soft, spongy seedling mix, the fine powder will trap the chemical salts. Because the baby soil does not drain well, the fertilizer builds up incredibly fast. Within 3 weeks, the salt concentration in that pot will become so toxic that the roots will burn and shrivel up. You cannot fake the heavy, chunky, airy structure of culture soil just by pouring green liquid from a bottle. The physical architecture of the dirt is just as important as the chemical food inside it. Trying to force seedling mix to act like adult soil by drowning it in chemicals will only result in a toxic, soggy mess and a very dead plant. As we prepare to close out this deep dive, let us create a final practical checklist for your next trip to the garden centre. First, determine the exact age and stage of your plant. Are you sprouting a dry, hard seed? Buy the small, lightweight bag of sterile seedling mix. Are you repotting a tall, green plant that already has an established root system? Buy the large, heavy bag of chunky culture potting soil. Second, ignore the beautiful marketing photos on the front of the plastic. Flip the bag over and read the ingredients like a detective looking for clues. Third, physically squeeze the bag. If it feels like a soft pillow, it is for babies. If it feels like a sack of damp mulch and rocks, it is for adults. By simply following this 20-year expert checklist, you will immediately eliminate 90% of the problems that cause houseplants to die. You are now equipped with the hidden knowledge of agricultural science. So what is the grand takeaway from all of this? The ultimate twist in our gardening journey is that we have been blaming ourselves for having a black thumb, when in reality, we were just using the wrong foundation. A 20-year veteran of the agricultural world has shown us that the dirt itself dictates life or death before you even pick up a watering can. Seedling mix is the sterile, nutrient-free incubator meant strictly for fragile babies. Culture soil is the heavy, rich, chunky steak dinner designed for the strong roots of adult plants. Mixing them up leads to starvation, fertilizer burn, and inevitable root rot. By finally understanding this crucial difference, you have just unlocked the ability to grow the indoor jungle of your dreams. Your seeds will sprout safely, and your adult plants will thrive for years to come. Thank you so much for watching and learning with us today. If you want to keep expanding your gardening knowledge, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and share this video with a friend who keeps killing their succulents. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever accidentally planted a big houseplant in tiny seedling soil? Tell me your funniest or most tragic plant fail in the comments below.